But hey, everyone, just wanted to introduce today. My name is Scott Bricker. I'm the Director of Product Development here at Travel Oregon. And you're logged on to Travel Oregon's Tour Operators, Guides, and Outfitters online forum program. Today, we're talking about managing disgruntled customers and staying positive during COVID-19. As people continue to chime on, we're hoping to have an interactive discussion today. We're going to try out some new formats from what we did last time. Feel free to use your chat function throughout the session if you want to throw up questions, or you want to, whether it's, let's see here, sorry, I lost my, you want to throw up questions or any kind of comments. And it's probably easiest if you just stay on mute for now until the breakout sections, and we'll be doing a couple of those during the program. So diving in, next slide, I want to remind everyone that Travel Oregon is here to serve you in the state. We are deeply invested in strong and sustainable communities and see tour operators, guides, and outfitters as critical businesses to help achieve the vision and intend to continue to provide programming to support you all. We've done a fair amount of in-person programming, and we know virtual programming can be a little tough, but we did want to continue to offer services during this really challenging time. Next slide, please. This is the second of 4 forums that we're producing over August and September. Later on in the session, we will be sharing the registration link for the next one. But again, today is managing disgruntled customers and staying positive during COVID-19. In September, we'll start talking about pivoting your business and tour products for the fall and beyond. And next slide. Just to clarify here, I wanted to share the intended outcomes of our programming. We really want you all to receive technical guidance to support tour operators, guides, and outfitting businesses to safely operate during COVID-19. We're hoping to share and hear about business experiences while seeking input from industry peers. And we're hoping that we could all meet and network with industry peers to support a more collaborative industry. So real quick, I'd like to introduce the Travel Oregon team. So behind the scenes today, we have Travel Oregon's Jordan McCauley, who is a Destination Development Coordinator, and she's serving as today's technician. If you have any questions about technical side, you can either private message her or just post comments or questions in the general chat, and she will hopefully support you. And then at the front of the house, Melanie Fisher, I'd like to introduce Melanie with Consulting Sensei. She's helping us organize these forums and will serve as today's forum moderator, and we'll come back on. But before I pass it to Melanie, we're going to try a slightly new approach here. Excuse me. We're going to break you all out into small groups. We'll probably do 2 groups to encourage networking and sharing among peers. Each person will have about a minute to introduce themselves and answer the questions that we're going to post right now in the chat. So those questions in the chat should stick over when you go into the small groups, and you'll see we're hoping that you can share your name, your business name and location, your business name, your type and location, and then on a scale of 1 to 5, how is your business doing during the pandemic? So we're going to break out into 2 small groups, talk for about 8 minutes, and then we'll come back as a larger body. So we'll see in a few minutes. Thanks.
Yeah, well, welcome back, everyone. Hope that was helpful for everyone to kind of decompress from your day and have a chance to meet and say hi to others in the tour operator and guide outfitter community here in Oregon. So thank you again for joining us for today's forum, focusing on managing disgruntled customers. We really hope you get a lot out of today, including some of our helpful outcomes. What's on the screen now, gaining useful techniques to interact with difficult customers while keeping staff members engaged in the workplace, and understanding the big picture and the positive aspects of why we work in the tourism and outdoor industry to help you through the rest of this lovely season. So today's schedule ongoing, we are going to continue with a presentation from Dan McGarrigle, owner of Pine Mountain Sports, here where both Dan and I are in Bend. And then we ask that everyone please stay with us afterwards for a second breakout group opportunity to discuss your business in more detail and how to integrate the ideas that you learned today. After that, we'll come together again to have a short group discussion. And so I'd like to introduce Dan to everyone, today's presenter. Dan is an important part of the Central Oregon outdoor community. He offers amazing customer service at his business, also has equipment rentals and quality gear for sale to both visitors and locals through Pine Mountain Sports. Pine Mountain Sports is known for its customer-first approach to business and has stayed open through most of the pandemic. So Dan is going to share his expertise on today's subject, and then you'll have time to ask your questions. Speaking of questions, if you have a question you'd like to ask, please click on the chat option on your screen that you can see in the bottom bar and share your question there. So we'll be collecting questions throughout Dan's entire presentation, and we'll be able to have time to do that once we're done. All right, so Dan, turning the floor over to you.
All right, great. Hey, everybody, thank you for having me. When Melanie first reached out and I saw that this was focused on tour guides and tour operators, the first thing that went through my mind is, well, what do I know about tour guides and tour operator business? And then in sitting down and talking with Melanie, it really was very easy for me to recognize that 90% of the issues that small businesses deal with are very similar 90% of the time. As a small business owner, I can't tell you the number of times where I felt like I was the only one in the world that had this problem, whatever it was, and that there's no way anybody else could understand it or possibly have gone through this. And I've actually wisened up over my last couple of years and realized that realistically, almost every problem that I have has been a problem that somebody else has gone through that is not unique to us. And that there's lots of resources out there and ways to work your way through them. So, you know, I'm really stoked to be here, and I'll do my best to address your issues and talk to you guys about what we're doing to get through COVID and dealing with disgruntled customers as we get through it. Does that sound like a good place to start? Cool. Nice. So it's kind of hard. I'm not used to doing Zoom meetings on a big mass level like this, but I'm assuming that that sooner or later, one of us has either already had or will have a disgruntled customer that we as operators or our staff have to work with. And I got to admit, whenever I see a disgruntled customer, and quite honestly, I worked with one yesterday. Hey, what's going on? Where did we let you down? There's a couple of things that I've learned about dealing with disgruntled customers. And the first one is really the basis for what we do. And it's really, really simple. You guys are going to laugh, but I picked this up from a TV show called Bridezillas. It's about, the show itself is about brides that are terrible to wedding planners and people trying to help them. But throughout the episode, really, I learned a very simple technique that when it comes to just dealing with disgruntled customers in general. The first one is just to listen. Regardless of what the situation is, and even if I'm that disgruntled customer, the biggest thing that I want people to do is to hear me, is to understand what's wrong. And if we're able to step back as owners and operators and actually just come up to the customer and say, hey, I'm here to help. What's going on? When I ask that question, sometimes the next thing that I do is this. And I'll physically put a clamp over my lips so I know to tell myself to be quiet. Because that customer, all they want to do is they want to be heard. And sometimes being heard will be very short. Sometimes it will take a very long period of time. But in giving the floor to that customer, it lets them know that, one, you're here for them, and two, that they're in the driver's seat, that they are the customer, and they want to be heard, and you want to hear their issues. And sometimes those conversations are concise and civil, and sometimes you're waiting for somebody to tell you the same thing 3 times. And that's okay. It's our role, at least as I see it, it's my role to hear that. Well, where did we fail? What went wrong? And usually after about the third time that somebody told me about the same issue, they've started to realize that now they're repeating themselves, and they'll slowly back down. From there, the next step that we have, it's very simple. We apologize, and we apologize once. And that is by design. The reason why we apologize once is we want to make sure that the customer knows that we recognize the situation and that we let them down. And that's okay. You know, we're human. We're gonna mess up. That's gonna happen. However, when you apologize once, it's sincere. People get it. When you apologize twice, well, that's great, but you already apologized to me. When you apologize the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, now the perception can be is that we're just incompetent in what we do, and that the only thing we have to defend ourselves with is an apology. And trust me, if there's small business owners and operators on this phone or on this call, you aren't incompetent. You're not. Don't put yourself in the position where you are. Apologize once. And then the next step is to offer them a couple options as far as how to resolve a situation. Hey, can I comp you an extra tour? Can I do a discount for you on this? Why don't we upgrade you this? Why don't I have a bottle of wine waiting for you when we get done? All of those things show that we recognize that there's a place to improve and that we're willing to concede and say, hey, do these sound like great ways for us to show you that we value you? And then the last step is very simple. If these ways that I've suggested don't solve that situation, why don't you tell me what does? Let me know what we need to do to make you feel as though that we value your business. Because then what we've done are very simple steps. We heard the issue, we apologized once, we offered ways to resolve the situation, and then the last thing that we did is we put the ball back in the customer's seat and back in their court to say, you're in charge here. If you don't like what we're suggesting, tell us what we can do to resolve the situation, and we'll be more than happy to consider that as an option. But in doing that, it puts the customer exactly where they want to be. They've been heard, they've got the apology, they've got options in which ways that we can show that we value them, and we've actually opened up the door to take any option that they want to put on the table to give it back to us and consider that as an option. As silly as it sounds, it's the exact way that we've trained our employees to apologize. And it's the scenario that I fall into every single time that I have to reach out to a customer in order to let them know that we care about them and we might have missed our expectations and theirs, but I'm here to resolve it. That's my job. It's what I do. So I just want to let you guys know, COVID or not, that's our process when we apologize to a customer about something, about an expectation that we didn't meet. And I have yet to find a scenario where that simple procedure didn't fill in all the gaps and get a customer back on our side. So I just thought I'd bring that out first. I hope that's good information for everybody. Now the fun part is, hey, you're a small business and you got to interact with people, and we're going to throw a really, how do we say this? A global pandemic that on a cultural and a national level maybe could have used a little bit better guidance as far as what the expectations are for us as a society. I'll leave that generally at that. I hope I'm not offending anybody. But I would say that the hardest time that we went through was the early parts of COVID. And really month-wise, I'm talking like April, May here, when masks weren't necessarily mandated by the state, when a business like ours was allowed to be open. And in doing that, customer expectations were all across the board. Now that we've seen mask mandates be made statewide, and what I would say the expectation and the playing field somewhat stabilize, I would tell you we've really ran into two situations in where we've had disgruntled customers. The first one was, why can't I get it done like I used to get it done before? It used to be like this, it's not like this anymore. And when we run into those situations, yes, we do have to remind people sometimes, there's a global pandemic going on. It's not fun to talk about. It's not It's not something that anybody's hoping comes back anytime soon, but it is a state of where we're at. And by reminding people that we have limitations as far as not just the resources that we have, but also the manners in which we can utilize our resources, whether it's people, whether it's transportation, whether it's logistics, whether it's equipment. All of these things take extra step and extra time, and chances are more resources. You know, if you've got a shuttle bus full of people, well, how many people can you put in the bus? You know, you've got a tour group. Well, how do you practice social distancing while you're in a tour group? You know, how many guys does it take to facilitate all of these things? What restaurants can and can't go to? How do we, you know, all of these things are going to come up. But the big thing that we've explained to customers is that the first thing is we're here for you. But the second part is also is that things are a little bit different. And yes, we can't quite do them the way that we used to. We had, and to give you guys an example, we had a customer who was really, really upset that we couldn't get a tune-up done in a certain amount of time. And we had to explain to him that simply because of COVID restrictions and how many people we could have in our workspace, we simply couldn't have more employees in the store working at any one time. And he said, well, can't you just have an employee come in earlier or one stay later and help get my work done? And I had to explain to them, well, yeah, we have a mechanic that starts his day at 5 a.m. and our last mechanic goes home at 1 a.m. Which one do you want me to have come in earlier, stay later? Which one should I ask? And in presenting that to them, and trust me, it is all about how you deliver that message. But in explaining that to them in a very calm and a very informative manner, a non-emotional manner, and just saying, hey, here's the resources that I have, which one should I ask to do more of? It makes it a human issue very quickly. You know, it makes them realize, oh, right, how do I ask a guy to get out of bed at 3:30 versus 4:30 to be to work at 5 a.m.? Or how do I ask an employee to stay till 2 o'clock in the morning versus 1 o'clock in the morning? As soon as you humanize it, it puts everybody on that same level, on that same playing field. The other situation that we had was, well, why can't I just do it the way that I used to do it? And why don't you just allow more people in the store? And right now we have a limit where we're letting no more than 6 people in our store at any one time. And that's both for the safety of our staff and our comfort of our staff, but also for our customers. We want them to feel comfortable inside of our store. So I had a customer one day literally yelling at me, why can't I just go in the store? What's wrong with it? Got my, you know, whatever it might be. And I simply explained to him in that very calm and engaging manner, gosh, Melanie, I hope it was calm and engaging. And I just told him, I said, well, the big reason why is because we value the safety and the health of you and your family and our staff and our family and our community more than we value money. And then he stopped. You don't have to really support that statement anymore. It doesn't take many words to speak the truth. And in being succinct and clear and calm and informative and engaging, instead of being defensive or, gosh forbid, trying to combat, you know, a disgruntled customer with a disgruntled tone, that's not going to get us anywhere. We've all been in this business long enough to recognize that as we add fuel to a fire, you simply get a bigger fire. But as soon as you start finding that sense in which we can humanize everything and let people know that it is all about us doing the best that we can with the resources and the limitations that we do. But the big note out of this is really, it's to be kind. And as soon as you start killing people with kindness and not matching their level of disgruntledness, for lack of a better term, that conversation will start to de-escalate. And if you set that tone and that expectation for how we communicate with each other on a respectful and insightful level, then those customers will follow suit. And I really do believe this, that inside of each disgruntled customer, each tough experience, it is chock full of opportunity. Because, just like I explained to our customer yesterday, I can't remember exactly what he wrote on his review, but it had something to do about how the experience that we offered was completely lame. And he was totally right. We completely blew it when it came to this customer and this experience. So when I look at those situations, I recognize that right now we're really, really low. We're like, if we're above the floor level, I would be surprised. But from the way he worded his review was, we were barely worth stepping on. But what that also tells me is that there's nowhere to go but up. That he's already upset. So how do we elevate things? And I go back to that same pattern. We listen to what he has to say. We apologize for what we did. We offer steps to resolve the solution, to solve the situation. And then we come back and we tell him, hey, if those aren't working for you, tell us what does. We value you as a customer. We appreciate the opportunity to resolve it. And more importantly, we want you to understand that we care. And in doing those things, as groups, people can be hard to hear. But as individuals, generally speaking, we have found people to be a bit more open and a bit easier to communicate with. So I hope that helps you guys with steps to handle disgruntled customers. And COVID time or not, it's really up to us to set the tone for how we want that conversation to go. And I have found time and time again, I've probably used that same 4 steps of handling disgruntled customers for the last decade. And it's served us really, really well, and I hope that it serves you well. That sound good? Cool, nice. Am I now talking about how to keep your staff engaged? Okay, good. So how to keep your staff engaged, that's a challenge for all of us these days. And trust me, even just this morning, I'm going through talking to my staff and to my HR an office manager about how do we train our staff? How do we give them tools to succeed? And quite honestly, training inside of the bike industry is almost non-existent. There's not really a lot of it that's offered by the industry. So we've got to come up with things on our own. And really what we've come up with is this. Every week we come to our staff with one simple message. And this week is, I don't know if you guys can see this, consistency builds integrity. That is one thing that we talk about this week. Last week, it was seeing opportunity and recognizing it. The week prior to that, it's a very simple message that we passed on. We are the kings and queens of hospitality. By reminding your staff that right now expectations are across the board, but for the most part, retailers and folks that work with the public, we're a bit in the crosshairs right now. Retail's tough. The customers that are coming for a tour right now, their expectations are probably pretty broad, whereas some are prepared for a, shall we say, an experience that takes COVID into consideration, and some folks are just expecting for things to be the way that they were. The biggest thing that we've done with our staff is talk to them and give them guidance, remind them about who each one of your organizations is, whether it's as simple as reading a mission statement, finding those simple things, those simple messages to remind staff every week, and then also talk to them about and help train them on how to deal with disgruntled customers. It's going to happen. It's going to come up. And even if it doesn't, at least they're trained to deal with it. But then when it does, they have the ability to fall back and say, hey, the owner of the organization taught me this, trained me on this. I don't know a lot about the different ways to handle disgruntled customers. There's probably a million of them out there. There's probably a stack of books at Barnes & Noble that you can buy that talk about it. We continually fall back on the one thing that we have seen that works for us time and time again. But you've got to make sure to engage your staff and let them know that these are the expectations, this is the business that we run, and here's a resource for you on how to get yourself through tough situations and set the tone for your customers. The last thing I would say on this is that right now, because the world's a little sideways, folks aren't necessarily really ready for that or expecting that A+, oh my gosh experience that we can provide. And every time that we walk outside and we greet our customers, the difference between, hey, what can I help you with? Versus, hey, how's everybody doing today? Great, what are we up to? You know, it really does depend on the tone in which every conversation begins with and it ends with. And remind that to your staff. We set the tone for the type of day that we're looking to provide, and it's up to each one of them to provide that. You know, if they can't come to the table with the right hat on, maybe it's a good day for them to take the day off. But we all know who the rock stars are in our organizations, the people that are unflappable, the people that come with the right attitude every day. The goal is to get each and all of our staff on that same goal every day of having that incredible customer experience. And that literally starts off from the moment that somebody steps out of their car or meets you at a meeting place, and that first moment of the engagement that they have with the people that represent our organizations. Hey folks, how are we doing today? Great, we're gonna go out, we're gonna do this today, we're gonna have an awesome time. Here's what we're gonna do, here's the expectations, here's the plan, any questions? Great, let's roll. So, you know, when it comes to your crew, just remind them, it's really up to them as far as, it's up to us as far as setting the expectations for the experience that we want to provide and giving our staff the tools and the reminders and the education in order to do it. Does that sound okay? Okay, cool. It's hard for me to do this without hearing anybody saying yeah or okay or all right, so I'm trying my best here. Mel with the pep talk. Oh, is that my next thing? Cool. So, you know, if you're looking, if you guys are seeing me or hearing me, the big thing that I would tell you is that every day I have to give myself a pep talk. And COVID or not, you know, sometimes business